SMD Law is the official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Check them out on the interwebs at smdalaw.com or at 866-529-3537. No matter where you are in the state of Michigan, Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula, it doesn't matter. They have an office near you. So whether you need to send a letter to an annoying neighbor, or you're a criminal and you need defense, maybe you just have problems with elder law, check them out, smdalaw.com today. The official law firm of the Spartan Nation. Call them first, then you act.
Walk all the way here?
Oh my gosh. It's a meat grinder.
Talking to your guys, Mark, they've talked about Noah Harvey and Jesslord Boateng as two guys that they think really are on the cusp of becoming your next great defensive players. What do you see in them, or is that something you're learning, hearing from them?
No, well, that's good for them to say that. You know, I'm excited about those guys. They're young players. They're very explosive players. They're guys that show a lot of great athletic ability, and they've made plays, especially in the spring. And you know, Noah Harvey's played a little bit more football than Jesslord, but I think both those guys have a huge upside. I mean, we're good at linebacker. We're good on defense.
You mentioned going into the spring, you wanted to get 22 starters on defense. How close do you feel you guys are to that right now?
That's a tough one really to say. I think that certain positions we are certainly at defensive tackle. You know, I think that with Zach Slade and Naquan Jones behind Panasuk and Raekwon, you know, those are four guys that could probably start for any team in the conference. You know, at the defensive end position, you know, I don't want to go through all my guys, but I think we're getting there. I think at linebacker we have talent. You know, certainly Brandon Randall's a talent. Tyreek Thompson's had a great year last year, and probably looks better than he's ever looked. He's trimmed down at 225, and you know, Bocce and Antoine Simmons have played a lot of football. Jesslord's behind him. We've got guys in the secondary. I think we've got guys with experience as well.
Mark, for this defense as a whole, how much better can it be, and where does it rank with you? I know the 13 defense was very good, but does this defense have a chance to be one of your best that you've had?
Well, statistically, that's what the statistics would say. You know, I think a lot of it depends on, you know, can you stay healthy and how you go through the process. But, you know, so I don't ever anoint a defense at the beginning of the season. But if you look at last year's defense, I think we were as good as any defense we've had. You know, we've got guys that can make plays on the edges. We got a great linebacker, very tough to run against. We had the fewest. One of the biggest statistics that I don't think people really acknowledge is we had the fewest big plays in the country. So we led the nation in the fewest big plays against us, and I think those things, you know, usually have a way of helping you. You know, if they can't. Explosive plays are probably the biggest indicator of scoring. I would look at last year's offensive struggles as just that. We didn't have enough explosive plays.
How about that on the other end with the offense? The offense passed it in the fourth quarter, keep the ball and maintain it. Did that play a factor with the defense in the fourth quarter last year? Just the inability to maybe sustain.
Well, you know, we're not giving up a lot of points. I mean, we gave up a field goal against Nebraska, so and give up. You know, the problem with it is, you know, you got to play perfect. You can't give up one play and that type of thing. So, but my idea and ideology has always been to, you know, in the game of football, as in life, you got to assess where you're at. You have to adjust to what you're dealing with, and you have to reset the button and attack through. You don't have to go forward. And if you can't go forward, then that's where your problems start to happen. But it's not the assessing or adjusting. You can do that, but it's the ability to move forward. So we'll do that on offense, and I'm very, very confident of that.
Prior to last year, your philosophy has always been you let your coordinators coach their spots, and you just kind of more of a CEO approach. Last year, you got more involved towards the end in play calling and offense and that. Is this going to be Brad's offense, Mark, or is it going to, because it's his first year, will you have a little bit more influence on that?
No, I think I maintain the same approach that I always have. I'm not going to disrupt an offensive coordinator's ability to call a game. I'm going to have some feelings on, okay, we're going to do this or we're going to do that, and I'd like to see these things and where these things need to happen. And I'm going to bring things that I've seen from a defensive standpoint that are difficult to defend into that. But again, you go back and you say, how do you get good at anything? You have to repeat things. You have repetition, I think, is the key to execution all the time. So you've got to rep things. You just can't say, hey, run that play. And it doesn't work like that. There's got to be a foundation there. Our offensive coaches have done a great job, I think, revamping our system and philosophy, and now we have to put that into more of a week-to-week, game-to-game type situation. But there's got to be productivity. I don't think there's any question about that. I understand that. But I never called the plays, never, other than occasional trick. I mean, I don't disrupt people. I mean, I talk with them between series and say, hey, we need to do this, or hey, run the ball here, or run this, do that.
Not expecting you to give anything away, really, but how much will people notice a difference in the offense this year, just the way it looks?
Yeah, I think people will notice a difference.
What were your takeaways coming out of the Red Box Bowl? You guys went tempo in the Red Box Bowl, and that was, it was a pretty rare thing to see for you guys for that sustainable. It was a concept that you guys have done.
Yeah, we've done that before, so I think that's something that everybody in America does, and we just want to do that, and I thought there needed to be some change, and in that capacity at that point in time, that was one of the changes, that and pistol. So, we moved to that direction. But if you really look at us across the board offensively and break us down, there's quite an array of different things that we do.
Starters, when it comes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
There's every year we seem to ask you about some sort of divisional alignment or something like that, but this year there seems to be a little more momentum. If I recall, 5 years ago you wanted to go west, or the school wanted to go west, but you're going to lose the rivalry with Michigan to do so. At this point, what's the likelihood of maybe a future alignment change, and how much discussion has there been, informally or formally, among you?
That's interesting because somebody asked me that at the podium, and I had not heard about that. That's something that has not been discussed with me, and I think that's something that's probably discussed maybe with the athletic directors or maybe it's the commissioner, but I'm not sure. All I can tell you is the East is very competitive. We've won the East, we've won the championship, we've won the Big Ten championship from there, and we've won it from the Legends. So we played on both sides of the spectrum there and become successful, so that's part of it. But I'm not sure.
Every year you get a veteran team with a veteran defense with this many potential NFL prospects and that sort of thing. I'm guessing from a defensive coaching perspective, there's got to be some enjoyment in that, and from a maturity standpoint, and seeing how good a defense can be. How much intrigue is there? How much enjoyment is there when you get a defense in this situation?
Well, I like stopping people. There's no question about that. I think you play to your strengths, and right now that's a strength of ours. So that needs to be as good as it's been. I enjoy it. I enjoy defensive football. I'm a defensive coach. I enjoy offensive football. I'm not quite sure how to answer the question. I like our guys because they get their hands dirty, because they're not satisfied with where they're at. Because Joe Bocci comes in here, he's not satisfied where he's at. He's up trying to find a place to live this morning. You're going to charge him $15 a lift, so he ditched it. But, or Kenny Willekes, a self-made guy, where he's come, or Raekwon, or Josiah Scott saying, hey, I want to play that last game rather than take a red shirt. And, he's the MVP of the bowl game defensively. We've got guys that have an intense amount of pride in the work that they do. Not so much in the job that they do, but in the work that they do. And that equates to job time.
The last 6 games that you played last year, and I know there are a couple guys that moved on, but it was a pretty high level of defensive football. How much better can they be? Are you curious about that? And what else would you like to see?
You can always get better. Sometimes the statistics might not indicate that, but you can always get better. I think Coach Tressel has done a phenomenal job. He's a phenomenal teacher. Coach Haynes, Coach Burton, Coach Bullock. Coach Burton and Coach Bullock are the defensive line coaches of the year in the country by Football Scoop. Coach Samuel's over there as an offensive coach to give that perspective. We've got solid graduate assistants that know what's going on, so they're being well coached. They embrace each other, and it's a good fit, and you're seeing the results of that. I'm sorry?
The decline in attendance at college football games is kind of the national right now. What do you think is the cause of that, and what maybe can be
Yeah, we had a game day atmosphere meeting this past week, to try and change some different things, and our administration is looking at all the different things along with our help to try and do that. But I think without being negative, I don't want to be negative, but I think apathy exists in America, and patience exists in America, impatience. So you come to games and you get a little bit tired and you got to push through. So Spartan Nation will push through. But I think there's a trend there. But I think you see that trend in high school. When you go to high schools, and a lot of you guys go to high school football games, you see that trend there existing there from what used to be. And maybe it's that there's so many other sports, or there's so many other things to do, or they can watch it on social media, or they can watch it from afar, or whatever. And I don't really know the reasons for it, but I just know it exists in society, I think.
It's normal for coaches to take trips to maybe learn schematics that other schools did, but you grabbed Bill Beekman and some of the staff, the athletics department staff, to take a look at Clemson and their facilities, Mark. A couple of recruits have said to me on the radio that you've mentioned them, possible new football facilities. Would you talk about that trip and about the $70 million expansion of the football program?
Yeah, I think that first of all I wanted to go down and see Morton Anderson, first of all. But then on the way back, I stopped to watch the Greenville Drive, a minor league baseball team play, which Craig Brown's the president of that. And then I took our guys over, Alan Haller and Chuck Sleeper and Bill Beekman over to Clemson, because I had been down there before and I saw the results of their program. And I think what Clemson did was they were right where we were in the playoffs, and maybe didn't make it, whatever. And then they capitalized on that and they went further. They changed the game from there, and they built a brand new facility. And I think those are the type of things that probably need to happen at Michigan State at some point. When you look around this room there, everybody's operating in new facilities with new expansions. So at some point in time, we're going to have to move on that. I would prefer it to be now, but that's not up to me. But I do think that there is a grassroots movement, not within the athletic administration, but among others at the university, that indicate that there's a push for that. But that's not for me to announce or anything like that. I think I'm just trying to be a guy that says, hey, somebody says, hey, you want a new facility? I'll say, I'm down with that. Let's go. So that's where I'm at, and I want to try to do all I can to make and keep Michigan State in a place of where they are a have and not a have-not.
You mentioned having defensive guys that
had a choice. Michigan State for baseball. Went 1-2 for that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on, are you going to continue to recruit those types of players? And I guess your thoughts on Jace Bone deciding to go play baseball?
Yeah, we had two guys decide that they were drafted Major League Baseball. To me, that tells you you're recruiting good athletes that are not just football players, they're athletes in general. Adam Burkhorst decided to make the college trip. Jace Bone decided to go play for the Pirates. I can't speak to that. All I can speak to is that both guys gave us opportunities to sit down and talk with them, and talk with Jake Boss, our baseball coach. And one took an avenue this way and the other took an avenue that way. And as I talked to Adam, it was about, do you want to be in college and play baseball and football, or do you want to be a professional athlete this time? He chose college. In watching Adam, it's hard for me to say this, but he's legitimately 6'7", or I'll say 6'6 and a half, 255. When I watch his explosiveness in drills out there, and his intentions and how he goes about his business, he will be an outstanding football player. And I think both guys have a future at in both sports. Chase chose baseball at this point in time, but we left on good terms, and I think that's the important thing. That it's their life. I'm just here to help them towards their dreams.
Another Northwest Ohio guy in your roster, Jake Hartberger. How important was it to get 6-year eligibility for him, and what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, along with all the injuries we had, we punted 5 different guys last year. Who does that? Who does that in America? And so Jake now will return as a starting punter, and he's a proven guy who's proved himself under duress and under pressure. And he's got a big leg, and he's an NFL type punter. So it's the ability to punt the football consistently is a huge asset in your program. And so we're looking forward to his return.
Just
a little bit ago, you were talking about defensive guys that like to get their hands dirty and sort of self-motivators. Would you say, I guess, this group is a unique collection of personalities where you don't have to worry about complacency given everything that they did last year? I think most would naturally assume, I hope they don't sit on their achievements, but
no,
with this group,
they're unusual. They're very unique in terms of the way they go about their business. They have leadership skills. They are not satisfied. I just told Kenny Willicus, he said Brian Lewerke has to have his best year. I guess he said that. I said, I'm going to tell him, Kenny Willicus must have his best year as a Spartan. And he put his finger at me and says, you tell him. That's the kind of person he is. I mean, he is and Joe Bocci, and Raekwon, and really Josiah Scott, and really Mike Panasiuk, and really David Dow. I mean, and I can go on with guys. They're not satisfied where they're at. They're playing to a higher level. And I have been so impressed, probably more impressed than any of my 13 years as the head coach here, with the way our players have gone about their business off the field and in practice and in workouts. I mean, there's a sense of accountability from within. You say hand behind the line, there's nobody putting their hand over the line. But they do it with a passion, and they do it with a positivity that is quite remarkable.
Is that similar at all from when you went from 12 to 13 with the bump, or from 16 to 17?
It is similar. Now the results need to come, but it is similar. You know, everybody sees that when you lose close, people see the inches and they say, "Oh, if we'd have just done that, or if I would have just done that, we would have been successful." So when it's close like that, I think that people see little things can make a difference.
You guys said chase the moment. They just heard that this morning. It's the first time they've heard that phrase.
Yeah.
I guess, where did that come from? And to you, what does the moment?
Yeah, the Chase the Moment, I've been reading a book. Actually, our staff has been reading a book, or those who wanted to. It's a spiritual book. It's called Chase the Lion. And if you read the book, it's about chasing dreams. And it's about not being able to access those dreams and get to those dreams without help, whether you're spiritual help or whether you're help from people that you're involved with. From the practical standpoint, I chose to use the word chase because I think we're always trying to move towards something, and the moments being that we've had great moments here. I don't think there's anybody that can say we haven't had great moments at Michigan State the last 12 years. We've been to championships, we've been to Indy 3 times, been to the playoffs. We won in every stadium that we've been in. So to me, it's about returning to those moments, about chasing down those opportunities and moments, and we have to do that collectively, and that's why I went with that. And then when you look at things across your life, I'm sure everybody can look at this and feel this out there, is that there are moments in your life that we've all had that sort of defines your life. And we're trying to find those and chase them. And I think those things exist, and we'll just keep moving.
How do you feel Brian Lewerke would change the whole dynamic of the offense with all these young players? You got a lot of options running and passing the ball. No one's really talked about it. You've got a lot of great pieces.
We have 9-11 starters back on offense. I was just told by Jack Ebling that, I guess, he asked me how many players we lost last year to starting positions, how many games relative to their starters. And he said that we had 83 starters out over the course of that missed games, which is a phenomenal amount. But we had guys playing with casts on their hands. We had guys playing with, they hadn't played for 5 weeks, and then they're back in the lineup. So we've got guys. And Brian Lewerke is the only quarterback in Michigan State history that has passed for 2,500 and run for over 500 and had 3,300 yards as a sophomore. Talking about him last year at this as being a Heisman hopeful and all that kind of stuff. So fame is fleeting. We all know that. But again, I go back to assess where we're at, adjust, hit the reset button. But he's prepared. He's ready to go. And Rocky Lombardi is a guy who now has game experience, so he's better. And he's more excited about the future as well. So all those things are taking their course.
Kenny's a guy who obviously been highly productive the last 2 years, but not alone on that line with guys like your starters with Raekwon and Mike, you got Naquan in backup, Jacob's going to be a second year. So how much does the depth and the other talent you have not allow teams to scheme towards just going away from Kenny and trying to neutralize his effectiveness?
Well, I think that's that's a good point. I mean, I think you run away from people, but sometimes they track you down too. Sometimes you want to run at them. But very excited about our defensive line, and not just the guys we've talked about. Jack Camper is a guy with a great amount of ability at defensive end. We got our 2 freshmen, Burkhorst and Michael Fletcher, are guys that I don't know if you'll see them or not, but they're 6'6", 250-pound athletes that could be on the edge for us. So we'll see how all that shakes out. Beasley's a worker. But we've got guys back who know what to do, and as Chris Solari mentioned, finding the top 22 is a challenge. So that's what we're trying to do.
Mark, you talked about Raekwon again earlier. Talking to these guys about him, not so much as a player, they all appreciate what he is as a player, but kind of the person he is and what he's come from, kind of made himself. He said it was until sophomore year he kind of realized this can be my way out while I'm still kind of showing my brothers and everybody how to get out.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about the kind of person he is and how that makes him the player?
He's a tremendous young person that has gone through unbelievable challenges relative to his family. He's a very caring, giving person. He'll have his degree at the end of this semester. He's a guy who was an outstanding athlete, but an average football player coming out of high school relative to what you're looking for. So he's made himself into an outstanding football player as well. He's as athletic as any defensive lineman we've had, and probably as strong, etc. And he's only one of a number of them, so we've got other guys, so that's the exciting thing about it. But he's taken on a leadership role, and really happy for him. That's why I was campaigning for him out there. So he's got more than just football going for him in life.
Is he one of those guys, though, that in that locker room he just has that personality?
He has a persona. He has a persona, and is very grounding. He can ground people because he's been through difficulty. Difficulty is not losing a football game. Difficulty is losing a brother or another family member, going through some of the things. That's true difficulty. But we're dealing with the sport, and that's minor in comparison. So I think he's been down that road and understands what he can give other players and other people.
That said, Kenny Willikers has a different kind of persona, I think you would probably say.
Yeah, Kenny's a little different, but aren't we all? Okay, so Kenny's a guy that came here as an outside backer or inside backer and transitioned to scout team as an H-move guy and put him at defensive end. He rushed the passer and eventually found his way onto the field in 2016 and became a force in 2017. And now here he is, preseason All-American. So he's gone from 215 pounds to about 260 and still has the same aggression. And he's again, these guys they don't settle. Doesn't mean we'll win, but it means that we have opportunities to get better. They won't settle.
How does the son of a surgeon become such kind of a wild child on the field?
I don't know. That's a good question.
He says his brother might be more athletic, but don't tell him.
His brother looks pretty good. Yeah. Had played football for 2 years, but he looks pretty good athletically moving around in drills.
How did you go through that process for a guy that's been away from the game? And did you see him at all before?
Kenny told me he's just like me. I said, well, you got to take a look at that
Mark, with Jaden Reed, the transfer receiver, could you get any more further into this, how that process worked?
Yeah, I think that how it worked, he reached out to, he went into the portal, and then with that, we were able to call him, and then he came on a visit and made his decision to come. Came on a visit. I think he might have gone one other place too, but then he made his decision to come to Michigan State. And,
is he going to apply to be immediately eligible, or is it going to be?
Yeah, we've applied, but I don't think it's going to happen because of transfer things. It's unfortunate that there's so much inconsistency in that area. Very unfortunate.
He's a guy, he played with Peyton. Right?
Played a couple of years with Peyton.
You had an eye on him at all?
Previously? Coming out of high school, we had knowledge of who he was, but he was sort of a late bloomer a little bit.
Have you ever added a guy, a freshman All-American transfer, like at that level where you're going to sit out here, but to bring in that caliber of player that's already accomplished that?
Well, I think we've had very few transfers at Michigan State. Keith Nickel reminds me of a guy that's transferred, that was a tremendous athlete and had a big impact on our programs, but not many. We haven't had many.
That said, you guys didn't have much attrition.
No. No, this has been a very positive year.
How unique is that, though, when you have this many guys that are starters, and guys obviously all want to play. I mean, that's pretty unique.
Well, that's where I go back and I talk about our football team's attitude in terms of care for each other. I mean, there is a tremendous attitude from the within that has grown and just keeps growing. That people are for other people. They feel good about each other and they feel good about where they're at, and that's a positive thing. When you're the coach in that capacity, you feel it makes you feel special. It doesn't guarantee winning. I understand that, but I've always said, give me your best effort, do things right, and I'll handle the problems. I'll deal with the problems that come if we lose, and that's sort of the way I feel. I feel like they're going to do everything that they can. They have thus far. We'll be right there. We'll have a chance to have a good football team.
Josiah Scott in the spring said his goal is to be an All-American, to be a Thorpe Award candidate. Do you think the A-team team this last year after your freshman season kind of has a little bit under the radar as far as his potential is?
Yeah, I think he's a little bit under the radar there, but he was the MVP, defensive MVP in the bowl game, so he shut down that receiver. And think about Oregon now. They got 7 points, guys. I mean, there's a reason they got 7 points. One of them, number 22. So he locked down that guy pretty much. He reminds me a lot of Daquez Denard in a lot of ways. So I think that, like I said, we want our players to dream big. So there's got to be ability there. They got to do it in steps, but he's taking the correct steps.
I think you said before he even started the game, it was like fall practice his freshman year compared to Garcia Denard. How much is he, do you think, just taking that as a comment?
His attitude, the way he goes about his business is very Daquez-like. It's just, like I said earlier, he doesn't settle. He's constantly trying to get better and very confident in himself, but he's not over the top. You guys have talked to him. He's very down to earth. And, he's sort of mission-driven. So it's positive.
You have 4 guys with Raekwon, Kenny, Joe, and Josiah that could well went to the, all have NFL aspirations and everything else, but their character is as great as their football ability. That's rare to have. Would you talk about the character of those guys?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was talking about before. It's not all about themselves. They're get their hands dirty guys. They want to complete what they've started. Much of them, I always talk about completing your circles. That would be Raekwon. That would be Joe Bocci with his degree because he's a 4-year player. That would be Kenny Willekes, Josiah Scott, even Mike Panasuk, David Dow. All those guys had options. I guess Josiah Scott couldn't have gone just 2 years in, but David could have. And there's a message there that they decide to stay. And with that being said, there's messages that have been the same offensively. Whether it was Connor Cook, those guys on that at that point in time.
You mentioned about dreaming big. Have you ever had a player in law school?
In law school?
Yeah.
No. Cam Chambers is
this fall, or
Cam Chambers will take is in the law degree program, and he's on the cusp of being in law school. But he's graduated, and he'll take all. What would you call that?
graduate courses?
Graduate law courses. So it's outstanding, and the fact that we're able to do that and pay for that. When you think about what college can do for your life and what being a major college football player can do outside of playing football, he'll have tremendous opportunities because of it.
On the flip side of that, Josh Butler, obviously.
Josh Butler is another story.
A lot of things away from football, I guess. How has that time been for you and him? And just,
Well, I'm going to try and make it happen for his dogs. I want everybody to know that. Okay. But, Josh has lost 2 parents in 2 years. Pain is not, nobody's got the market cornered on pain. Everybody, is going through something somewhere. But he's at a good place. He's playing very good football. Had a great spring. And in a leadership standpoint, he's excited about this season. He's a starting corner for us. He was highly recruited, and he played a lot last year and played well last year. Played very well in the bowl game. So I think there's a great future there for him in store as well. But he's another guy. He's in grad school in graphic design, getting his master's. He'll have his master's in January. So he's another young man that's doing great things, and he's just another example of what I'm talking about on this football team. There's a lot of side stories that are special stories that you guys probably already know.
You got I think it's first time in 5 or 6 years, the 2 buys. One another.
Yeah, I don't know how that happens, guys. You might ought to do a story on that. How does that happen?
It's the calendar, I think, the extra set.
Is there another team in America that has a bye, a game, and a bye? I don't think there is. So that's a whole different set of.
Don't you love it though?
Not really. I mean, I think that's a lot of time off, especially when you in front of that you play 3 of the 4 games away. So there's a lot there to look at and say, how did that happen? But that's not for me to say, just to bring up. Be controversial.
Is that the challenge, though?
There's a challenge.
Interruption of
yeah, I think it's a challenge. How do you handle that week? You're not going to play for 3 weeks. You're playing 1 game in 3 weeks. So what's the level of your conditioning? When you don't play football, you sort of get out of that. So how do you practice? How do you recruit? All these different things. So you have to make those changes. But we'll embrace those, just like we'll embrace the away games. There's not a place that we've played that we haven't won in this conference. So we can go play and win at any stadium.
Mark, you keep your notes on every pregame going back years and years and decades. You've got a manual on how to handle a lot of things. There's nothing in there that says 1 game in 3 weeks. You're going to have to write a new chapter.
This is, I think, the first time that teams have 2 buys. So that's unusual. And, I don't know how it happened, but it happened.
It's the calendar. It's the early Labor Day, late Thanksgiving.
And we happen to have 2 around 1 game. So.
And there's nothing in the manual to deal with that. So have you looked at it yet, like how you're going to be handling practice during those?
We divide up our season in phases, and so that'll be 1 phase all in itself. Okay, how are we going to handle that? So just like the phase before that, 3 out of 4 games are away. Prior to that, 3 straight home games. So how are we going to handle those situations? And we'll apply ourselves and get ready for each situation separately, and work towards each of those phases like their seasons in itself.
You mentioned Jack Camper earlier.
Yeah.
Is he going to be good to go for the start of fall camp?
Yeah, Jack's going. He's conditioning, so he'll be ready to go.
Do you have a date for the start of camp at this point?
July 31st, next Wednesday. Not this coming Wednesday, July 31st Wednesday.
A couple of those guys that sat out in the spring, like Cole Chewin.
Yes, Cole Chewin's back. We have nobody that's out right now. Possibly we won't start camp. Possibly Tyler Higbee won't start camp just because he's adjusting to his surgery. But he should be ready before the end of August, I think.
The Big Ten championship has run through Ohio State a lot of these past few years. You guys obviously got him in 2015. What does it take to beat the team that's a little bit like the standard of the league for a few years? What does it take
to beat Ohio State? To beat Ohio State?
Yes, to beat them.
To beat them?
Surpass them, yeah.
I think you've got to have a great execution and conviction to do that, and I think it helps when you've won before. So there's a little bit of history to me is the best indicator of the future. So gone down to Columbus and won before, we'll need to do it again. But easier said than done. We've got a great program, great players. We probably have 35 players from the state of Ohio, so they're motivated. But so is the other team. But there are challenges there. Built-in challenges, those.
You mentioned Higbee. I'm curious. Well, you mentioned Tyler made me think. How much competition do you expect on the offensive line at this point? Because you have a lot of guys who've played a lot. Your bowl starting lineup is all back. You also have all these other guys that you might want. What level of competition would you expect at that position?
I think those guys got to stay healthy, and then they got to perform at a high level in camp. They're certainly going against the defense that'll test that, so they got to be able to perform. So it'll be. But we've got, I think, 8 guys with game experience, and 50 lettermen coming back. So we've got plenty of guys coming back.
Your philosophy prior to Mark Staten changing it was get 5 guys and stick with them. Then you went to more of a rotation basis. Do you think you'll stay with the rotating 6, 7, 8 guys, or would you like to see it go back to maybe 5?
No, I don't. I really don't care. If the guy's good enough to play and adds to the production of our offense, then he should play. I don't care as long as as long as there's not a drop off. If there's a significant drop off, then I go with the 5. But I think that our guys have really, because of injuries or et cetera, that guys have played in and around.
A lot of those guys put on weight this offseason. You see a lot of guys over 300 pounds now.
Yeah.
Is that a point of emphasis?
Yeah, I think we lost weight last year. The course of the season, we played with a lighter offensive line. I think we've got to get movement up there. We've got to win at the point of attack on the offensive line, and we've got to protect the quarterback. Those two things. So there's a lot of things when you look at the dynamics of offense, is what you got to do, and obviously it all comes down at the end. You got to be productive. Turnover margin, things of that nature. We were +1 last year. You look at 2013 and 2014. I think we were +13 or 14 in both those years. So the turnover margin is huge. Both getting them and then also and not giving the ball away. But you got to move people.
Talk about recruiting power players.
It's a nice little apparatus there.
Talk about recruiting power players and big guys on the offensive line. I guess, do you see any of those, true freshmen or retro freshmen that can push this during camp?
We've got a number of freshmen that came in early. Nick Samak's a guy that looks promising. Devontae Dobbs just came in this summer. He's a very, very athletic guy. Looks promising. He's 282 pounds. Nick's 285 pounds or whatever it is. So those two guys, we got Spencer Brown and in as well. So we've got some guys coming in. So we'll see how they add to the mix there and everything. But I think it's too early to tell without getting pads on those guys. But Nick did a nice job in terms of how he played this spring.
How do you view the parity of the league in the 15 years that you've been? Do you sense any more or any less parity this year?
A lot of parity. I think there's a lot of parity. I think everybody's doing their very best to critique their programs and move their programs forward. I think they do a great job recruiting. It's really almost, when you look at people's rosters, Maryland has players from Maryland, we have players from Michigan and Ohio. It's sort of like all-star games in a lot of ways. But everybody's doing a good job with it, and when you look across the board, I think everybody can line up and play with everybody. So that'll be a challenge.
Mark, when you think back to your first year as a head coach at Cincinnati, what did you miss most about being with system?
The responsibility.
That seems to be a common answer to either the
No, I think that when I was an assistant coach, you got a little bit closer to the players in your group. When I was a coordinator, to those 35 players. When I was a position coach, to those 12 or 15 players. I think the day-to-day relationship. As a head coach, I still have the day-to-day relationships, but I'm more the principal at the high school, walking down the hall saying how people are doing, and hey, don't pick up that chewing gum, and holding people to a standard, and then saying, okay, we need to teach this in this class or this in this class, and I don't like the way you're teaching, or we need to do these concepts or whatever the case. But sort of look at things broad-based, and I think you lose that a little bit when you become a head coach.
How do you fill that void, or is it just gone?
No, I go back into the room. I go back into the offensive staff room to some extent, small extent, but mainly I go back in the defensive staff room. I sit in on player meetings with our coaches, especially probably the quarterback meeting, because I think that you get a pretty good landscape of everything that's going on in that meeting. But sometimes I go in other meetings. So I try and re-energize myself by getting around the players, and that's at meeting time. So that's what I do.
Hey, Coach, I asked some of your players about the academics, and they talked about they're here to play football, but they're here for the academics too. How special is that to you to have these guys talk about the academics at Michigan State, and that's one of the reasons why they're here besides football and a lifelong learning experience?
Well, one of our goals is to find a passion outside of football that's going to fill that void, because when that void is gone, when that void exists and football is gone, there's a huge hole that they have to fill, whether that happens 10 years after graduation with pro ball, whether that happens immediately or after 2 years. They have to be able to fill that void. So they have to find something that they're passionate about, and that's where academics comes into play. And as we spoke here earlier, we've got guys working on their masters. I think we have 3 guys that will have their master's degree at the end of this this semester, but I think every one of our seniors either has already graduated or graduated in the fall, with the exception of one guy who'll graduate in the spring. So we're doing the job academically as well, and that will pay dividends in their lives.
Have you given thought to, after your career, what would fill that void for football?
I have thought about that.
Yeah.
That's a good question. My wife says that all the time. You're not ready. You're not ready. What are you going to do all day? So I just sort of, I guess I'll know when it happens. But
do you have a timeline in place when you think you may want to step away, Mark?
No, I really don't. I don't. I tell recruits, I guess I tell you guys here, I live in the present. I'm trying to live in the present. I like my job. I like my players. I really care for my players. I care for our coaches. And as long as they're not causing too many problems, which it'd have to go quite a ways because the bar has been set high, okay, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And as long as I feel good, I feel really well.
What's the feel? What's the predicator when you say, okay, now's the time? Not necessarily when, but for you, what would be
the moment? I guess at some point when you don't feel like you can. At some point when you feel like maybe somebody else is better suited to lead. I don't know. I just go with the flow.
You're a teacher at heart.
Assistant coaches. I mean, you guys are here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you're a teacher at heart. I mean, do you still feel that you can?
Oh, I teach. Yeah, I teach.
I mean, the kids, the change in kids and development. And
kids are kids. There are changes. I mean, I think the different generations are different. The level kids changed in the last 5 years, but where things have changed, the media has changed. Everything changes them, but kids are still the same. They still have a passion. They're still young. They still grow, and it's exciting for me to watch their growth. It's exciting, the seasons change, so you're not playing football for too long. Then it changes to recruiting, then it changes to critiquing, then it changes to spring ball, and then there's always new optimism. There's always new things to chase. There's always new moments to chase. So those type of things exist, and I think that in a lot of ways it keeps you young. To be quite honest with you.
Coach, about your assistant coaches. You guys are here, head coaches are here, but what's it like to have these dedicated assistant coaches out there representing Michigan State and all these other places that are just out working hard to make the program better?
We have great coaches, and they are loyal, extremely loyal, and great teachers. And they have existing relationships with every player that we have, and they're making a difference not just on the football field, but in people's lives. And that's the thing that you sort of cherish about your coaches, and it's not an easy job. Everybody can't do it because there's a lot of criticism thrown their way, and there's a lot of heartaches and a lot of change thrown their way. So it takes a special person to be able to coach at this level.
How difficult was it for you to make the changes you made in the offseason?
Difficult. They were difficult because I had to unseat people, but in doing that, I also allowed people to maintain their relationships with their players and our players with them. And there needed to be a change of scenery to some degree. And as I said, I put people back in their supreme area of expertise. It's where they became an expert, and I'm banking on that. And I'm banking on them being good teachers and being patient people. Because at the end of the day, guys, players make plays. Players make plays. I'm not pinning it on the players, but there's got to be a system in place that they operate. Players need to catch the ball and run with the ball and tackle. They need to make plays, and that's part of it.
I think this is a fair question. Your offensive production numbers had gone down several years in a row. By choosing not to fire anyone, it's your call, it's your program. But do you think maybe you rolled the dice a little bit on your legacy if it doesn't work out?
No, I really don't. I think my legacy is intact. But when I look back and I just did our coaches' evaluations, this spring, and I look back and I look at their resumes and what's on their resumes and the things that they've been able to accomplish. I would argue that, having coached 44 players in the NFL, the offensive line is pretty spectacular. Dave Warner was the offensive coordinator in the most productive offense in the history of Michigan State football. And, I can go on and on. I can go through every single coach. And they've had, extraordinary production and accomplishments. So they're good teachers. There needs to be a little bit of a change or tweak. But in my mind, I'm banking on people's relationships with individuals. I think it's very difficult when you start over and you bring in, and you say, okay, we're going to hire a whole new offensive staff. Okay, let's take the next 2 months and do that. Well, there's 2 months that you're not working towards a solution. Then you bring in people and they don't know who number 27 is from number 32, off the field and on the field. So there's a lot of power in having the knowledge of what's just occurred and how to fix it. And I'm banking on that being fixed.
We're trying to maybe motivate those coaches as well, in some sense.
Our coaches didn't need to be motivated, you know. But I thought they handled the change like soldiers, and they went to work.
I was going to ask, you think it was difficult for any of them?
Sure, it's difficult. I think it's difficult for all of them. But you know, sometimes you have to make decisions as the head coach, and you know, this was the solution that I came up with, or the solution to, or the possible solution that I came up with. And by doing it, I think that it was the best thing that I could do. I mean, I just do. When you hire people that you don't know, there's a big unknown factor there. I know who's honorable. I know that these guys will work, and I know that these guys will care about their players. I know these guys will do more for their players off the field than on the field. And there's a synergy in that.
Mike Truss has been with you obviously for a while. How much have you seen him grow as a coach, from being a position coach to a coordinator? And do you see him being a head coach?
Great question. Mike has grown immensely. Mike is as good a coordinator as we've had. Attention to detail. And we've had great ones. That's not to take away from anybody, but the excellence that is existing right now on the defensive side of the ball is an indication of that. His head coach opportunities will come for him, I would imagine, and I think he's earned those. So hopefully we don't lose him. But I think he has that. You know, he's been an offensive coach in the past. He's an offensive coach at a smaller school, but you know, he's been with me for this now is 16, 18 years. So that's a long time.
Gotten to see him grow up as a person and coach.
Yeah.
Did you kind of talking about that shifting gears a little bit? Have you been in contact with Malik McDowell at all? Or
No.
I mean, did you kind of just watch that situation with VAR? Was there any predicators to this?
No, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about that. And you know, I wish him the best. And you know, those problems were not here.
As someone who mentored him, how difficult is it to see him going through this time?
Going down the wrong road.
Kind of in the same vein, have you talked to LJ much? I know he was with the Browns, and then he wasn't, and I'm kind of confused about what his NFL plans are. I don't know if you communicated.
Not talked with LJ, sent messages to him, but you know, it's a tough situation probably for him right now.
Hey Mark, how tough is it to shake up the staff a little bit? You know what I mean, a coaching staff, you kind of want to make some changes and stuff. Is that the toughest thing a head coach does?
Change is tough on everybody sometimes, but sometimes change is needed. And in this case, I made the changes relative to what I felt was best for our program at this time, and but that allowed them to also maintain their relationships and their foundation of who they are and what they teach. So things are changing philosophically, but at the same time they're able to keep their individuality.
And what did you want to see? What do you want to see come of this? What kind of like incremental?
Well, we had a lot of injuries last year, but the bottom line is at the end of the day, you need to have more production on offense. You know, you can't lose games 7-6 or 9-6 or 16-13. You need to have some more production. You know, and that's just the reality of the game. You know, I think that's true for head coaches as well. You know, I understand this is a big boys game. It's a big boys league. So, but with that being said, I believe my coaches. I'm loyal to our coaches, and I believe in them completely as teachers and their football knowledge. They understand the game. Players got to play. This thing's going on forever. 8 more minutes.
We got 3 minutes. You mentioned earlier, one of the phrases you mentioned about the offense is revamp your philosophy or something like that. I think that's what you said. If not, you can correct me on that.
Let's talk about my cufflinks.
How about your cufflinks? That's what I want.
Okay, let's talk about my cufflinks. Okay? These are Big E Munns that he wore to the 57 Rose Bowl. Okay? I put those on here for a reason this week. Okay? We're headed in that direction. We're headed beyond, whether it's the Rose Bowl or someplace else special. But that's where we're going. Next question.
Where did you get those?
Wasn't biggie. Guy gave those to me as a present probably about 7-8 years ago, and I thought this would be the perfect time, and that I didn't have cufflinks.
We talked a lot
It'd be the
about
perfect time to break them out.
And you're gaining on a plateau that he shares also, right? Student wins. Is that right? 12 wins?
Duffy.
Yeah, it's we talked a lot about the 12-13 changeover and similarities.
Yeah.
You sense kind of a similar veteran feel from this team. And
Yeah, there's a lot of that. You know, I remember when Blake Treadwell, asserted himself as a leader. You know, in 12, and all of a sudden in 13 he becomes a captain. There's a lot of that. You know, didn't have a quarterback coming out of there. We had quarterback play was suspect in 12, suspect in 18. You know, didn't have, the running back situation was in flux a little bit. So had a lot of wide receiver problems at that point in time. Guys dropping balls. This year it was more guys injured. So there's a lot of that. But again, I go back to what I said when we first started this meeting. You need to assess where you're at, adjust, and reset the button and go. And I think our players have done that. And I've been very impressed with how our offense has taken to the challenge.
in particular, what did the injury situation in 12 do? That was on the offensive line when you guys had a lot of guys.
Yeah, we had a lot of
problems. How did you guys see the injury situation build the depth for that next year?
There's nothing like game experience that exists for a young person. You can be extremely talented, but if you don't have game experience, you're lacking something, because there's something to be said to going out there on national TV with 80,000 people or 100,000 people there where things are on the line. I think when you get those opportunities, when young players play, you get those opportunities, and I think that pays dividends.
You mentioned, Duffy, what would it mean to become the winningest coach at Michigan State? What would that mean to you?
For me, it's a accumulation of a lot of work by a lot of people, administratively, assistant coaches, staff, players. They made all the plays. We've won games because players make plays. So I hope that everybody takes a moment that has been associated with this program in the last, 13 years now, takes a moment and steps back and feels a sense of accomplishment. It's not just about me. It never really has been. It's about a group of people working towards a common goal. And it'll be a special moment, I think, because of all the different things that have gone on. Whether you reach back and look at the plays that Greg Jones made, or the plays that Brian Hoyer made, or Javon Ringer. There are so many players. Kirk Cousins, you can go on. You could, William Golston, you could just start throwing names out right and left of all the guys who made plays for us over the course of time and had special times. And that's when I come back to what's the mantra for chase the moments. It's because of just that. Those moments existed in the past. We need to go forward with new ones of our own.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.